Thank you. Right. Over to you, Jacques, to announce the Springbok side that will play against Argentina this coming Saturday at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you, Rayan. Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so the Springbok team to face Argentina this weekend in the second test against them is I'm going to read out the names from number 1 to number 15, and then the bench. So number 1, Trevor Nyakane. Number 2, Malcolm Marx. Number 3, Thomas de Tooy. 4, Marvin Ori. 5, Lode Jager. 6, Siakulisi, and he's the captain. 7, Franco Mostert. 8, Jasper Wiese. 9, Kobus Reinach. 10, Andre Pollard. 11, Makazole Mapimpi. 12, Damian Darlende. 13, Lucanio Am. 14, Chesnan Colby. 15, Willie Leroux. And then the bench is from 16, Bongi. 17, Steven. 18, Frans. 19, Nicolas. Janse van Rensburg. 20, Kwaga. 21, Dan. 22, Jaden Hendricks. And 23, Damian Willemse.
Thank you very much, Jacques. And as customary, first up, for very briefly, over to Matthew Pearce of SuperSport, our host broadcaster.
Thank you, Rayan. Good afternoon, Jacques and Makazole. Jacques, being able to make 6 changes in the back line for a second consecutive test match after you've secured a bonus point win, what does that say to you about the depth available to you? And how tough was it to actually make this call for this weekend's test, given the performance last weekend?
Matt, yeah, no, listen, I think it speaks volumes for the depth of rugby on an international level that we have available. And like I said last week, I mean, the changes is not at all taking Argentina lightly whatsoever. I mean, it's just purely we're in a position where since we played Georgia, it's probably 7 or 8 weeks consecutive rugby. If you think we played Georgia, then we were in isolation. Then the SAA side played against, which were a big bulk of these players played against the British and Irish Lions, and then the 3 test matches against the British and Irish Lions, and now the 2 test matches against Argentina. So from a player welfare point of view, we are, I would say, forced to look at the well-being of our players, but we are very fortunate to have so many backs currently available to us that we could put out a backline last weekend and make almost a whole backline bar Kobus Reinach. We made a whole backline change again, so we're very fortunate. Yes.
Jacques, just a word on both Marvin and Nicolas in the second row. Marvin getting a first test start, Nicolas with a potential test debut. What you've seen in them in this environment as they build towards what's a very big day for both of them.
Yeah, Marvin has been part of us for a while, and I must say I was. When I heard it is his first test start, I was quite surprised, because I remember Marvin being part of us in the World Cup mix, building up in the Rugby Championship in 2019. Obviously missed out going to the World Cup. But so Marvin has been part and parcel of us for in and out of our team and team environment for a while. And yes, he's been training very well, Matt. He's been energetic. We in the British and Irish Lions series, he was how can I say, he was Maro Itoje for us. He studied him, his mannerisms, how he calls line out. So he was phenomenal in preparing the team in the British and Irish Lions series. And then yes, he's really trained well. Nicolas has been part of us since we got together in Bloemfontein. So he's been with us. He's played 80 minutes for us up to now. So yeah, looking forward to he's been with us now, like I said, from Bloemfontein, so pretty much clued up with our systems. Looking forward to see them perform on the weekend.
And then just finally from me in the front row, first test rugby for Thomas du Toit since the World Cup, and then also Trevor Nyakane after delivering on both sides off the bench, getting a test start in the number 1 jersey, just his 7th test start.
Yeah, Matt. With talking about Thomas, obviously, Thomas was unfortunate. He was one of the unfortunate guys that got COVID and had to isolate, and or he was a close contact, so he was in isolation, and he probably would have had an opportunity to play earlier, but things just didn't work out for him. And hats off to him. He's been always positive at training hard. Yeah, he gets his first opportunity now, like you say, since after the World Cup that he's going to be involved in Test match rugby. And yeah, we are very happy with Trevor making that move to Lucet after the injury of Oxy. And yes, he really stepped up, and like you rightly say, he's gonna his first start there at Lucet for us, and looking forward to see Trevor operate now, not coming off the bench but starting at Lucet, and what he can deliver for us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Matthew. Matthew Pierce representing our house broadcaster, SuperSport. Right, we're going to move on swiftly, and we say good afternoon to Craig Ray. He's in Cape Town. Good afternoon, Craig.
Afternoon, everyone. Afternoon, guys. Jacques, the fact that you made changes again, could I just throw it forward a little bit too? What's the plan after Saturday? You leave on Sunday for Australia. Are some guys going to sit out for the Australia leg to have a bio bubble break and come in later for New Zealand? Could you just give us a bit of an idea of the planning around what happens after Saturday, please?
Craig, no. I think what people don't understand is that we are currently in a testing regime, and that's why it's so tough to get people in, to get into our bubble currently. It's not just people, even our standby players who's on the standby list, if we should pick up injuries, they are currently in very strict bubble regulations, testing, blood tests. There's a whole lot of requirements that we have to adhere to get on a plane on Saturday and fly to Australasia. And yes, you would probably be able to get somebody in, but if you get somebody in, he must be in a testing regime, a specific testing regime, according to SANZAR's requirements, while he's in South Africa, and then he's got to get on a plane, fly there. He's got to isolate there for 14 days. So I would say to get a player in, he must be in a well-controlled testing regime, a well-prescribed testing regime in South Africa or abroad, if it's maybe somebody from overseas. And then when we fly them in, they have to be in 14 days quarantine in Australia before they can join us after that. So we will travel with this whole squad. And that's the reason why we travel with this big squad, because it will almost be impossible. If you think we're only playing 4 games there, let's say you lose a player after the first test match, the whole process will take him. He'll probably only get out of quarantine on a Monday, on a Tuesday, and then he'll only be available for the last test match. So if we lose somebody in test match 1, it's almost he will come out on a Tuesday before the last test match.
Is it 37 players, Jacques? Sorry, I've just lost track of how many players you've got with you. 42
players.
And they're going to all travel to Australia barring injury.
Yeah, barring injury. That's correct. Hopefully we don't pick up anything on this weekend. And like I say, if we do, to put it in perspective, we will fly almost in a bubble plane, if I can say it like that, with Argentina from Port Elizabeth. We will fly to Cape Town, and there we will get on a plane together with Argentina, and we will fly to Australia. So we almost stay within our bubble from when we leave here until we get into Australia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques, and thank you, Craig Ray. And good afternoon, Heinz Schenk.
Thanks, Rayon. Hi, guys. Hope you're all well. Jacques, there's a lot of excitement, obviously, about Jasper Visser almost like making a bit of a breakthrough performance, last weekend, in last weekend's test. I was just wondering what your experience has been of him, since he's joined up with the squad. You guys have said previously that he basically broke down the door, with his performances at Leicester. But is it almost a comforting thought to think that he actually gradually introduced himself to international rugby, that it's actually a better sign that a guy just improves weekly, from the start, instead of shining immediately and then maybe tailing off?
Yeah, I think Jasper, I think he played 4 tests now, 4 caps. And again, like Makazole will tell you, it is, I would say it's easier in the beginning. People don't really know you that well, and you almost get under the radar on the scene. But then they start analyzing you, they start making profiles of you, they start taking notice of you, so things get a little bit tougher. And he's probably there now where teams will take notice of him. He had a good performance on the weekend. There's still, from an international point of view, I mean, that's why international players, to get to 20, 30, 40 test caps, it's a lot of experience, and it takes a long route. It takes a lot of tests, a lot of years to get to those test numbers. So Jasper is still in his early bit of his international career. I think he's exactly where he should be. And what he delivered when we started doing performance reports on him when he was playing for Leicester, I mean, he's doing that for us currently, and that's why we selected him to deliver what he delivered over there. Yes, he's working hard and he's positive, but still, I must say, he's a student, if I can put it like that, currently, of the game. He's like a sponge, absorbing everything that gets thrown his way. He's not an ego guy that doesn't want to learn off people. He learns off, and that's the beauty of our squad currently. You have Dwayne here that can pour his 50-odd test match experience into a Jasper, So Jasper don't have to play 20 test matches to almost learn or get the knowledge. He's getting it from Dwayne, and hats off to Dwayne for being open and willing to share, and that's pretty much where the squad is currently. And they're willing to share their knowledge with the younger, less experienced test players as they come through.
Thanks, Jacques. Next one will come from Craig Lewis.
Thanks, Ray. How's it, Jacques? I was just wondering, is Rassie going to be back in his role on the side of the field? I know you obviously mentioned after the 3rd test against the Lions how valuable that feedback had been.
Yeah, no, I think I hope he will be there. Last week we had Dwayne. Rassie had a couple of things that he had to do, and he hasn't been with his family. I mean, I was fortunate enough; my family was with me in the bubble. But Rassie, due to logistical stuff, his family couldn't make it. So he had a little bit of a break, which is good to get refreshed, And yeah, no, he's back he's back with us in the team. Got into with the right protocols and all the stuff that we have to do to get into the bubble. And yeah, hopefully he will be on his post, and I believe he will.
Thank you, Luis Chiesa from ESPN.
Good afternoon for all, Jacques. Before the first game, there was talk that the key was going to be in the battle of the forwards. Now you make 11 changes and 6 of them are in the backs. Do you think that this game can be raced differently?
No, I think it will still be a battle of the forwards. I think rugby hasn't changed a lot. The foundation must still be laid down by the forwards. I think a lot of the forwards that are playing this weekend played last weekend or came off the bench, So there's a lot of consistency in our forwards, and I still believe it will be the foundation will be laid by the forwards. for this test match as well.
Thank you, Jacques. Nathan Gogela.
Thank you, Ray. Good afternoon, gentlemen. May I please have a closer question for Durex at the end, and then an English question for Jacques. Jacques, if you look at the Stormers side in 2010 and the Springboks today, do you see any similarities with regard to the scramble defense and the fewest tries conceded in Super Rugby and Tier 1 nations respectively? Is it something you've prioritized? Because stats don't lie. You've obviously conceded 4 tries in the last 10 fixtures. And then lastly, what positions will Kwagga and John Luke cover?
Your first question on the defense. No, I don't think there's a lot of similarities in the defense system we had with the Stormers in 2010 and the system we are currently running, because I think we were a lot more passive back then with the Stormers. The rules were different. The way you could apply pressure on teams and the way attack was back then was a little bit different. So things had to adapt, and also the players that you coach, that I'm fortunate to coach now, is different to the players that we had with the Springboks. They have different skill set, different attributes, different athletic abilities, and I'm from a defense coach point of view, I mean, if you have speed, use it. If you have size, use it. So you look at the athletic attributes that you have, and you try and incorporate that within your system. If you have fast wingers, use them. If you have wingers that can make good decisions, utilize that, So, and not to say that back then we were different. I mean, we had Jacques, so we had it, and he had different attributes as a 13. He was the defense captain back then, and he brought something into our defense system back then. We had a big team. If you think our loose forwards was Dwayne Vermeulen, Skalk, Burger, and yes, Francois Lowe, so if they were all over 100 kilograms, and our locks was Andries Becker and Adrian Fonse, or Reinhard Alstedt was the locks back in the day. So we had a massive side. So we were a little bit different in the way we do in the system that we have currently. Yeah, and again on the defense thing, I mean, the one thing that I probably learned as a defense coach is it's not about the defense being good. We must perform as a team, and some games attack will have to win you the game. Some games defense will have to win the game for you, and some games your kicking game will have to win it for you. And some game your special X factor of players must win you the game. So I don't think there's one way, and there's an only way. The opposition and what they bring to the party, you will have adapt to that. You will have to adapt to that. And during the game, there will be ebbs and flows and swings in the game. Sometimes momentum will be with you on attack, and then you must attack and you must score points and get points on the table. And sometimes the momentum will go against you, and you will have to defend your try line as if your life depends on it. So I just think it's not just one thing. We try and get a balance in both, in all three departments, if I can put it like that. I know there's more departments, but if I can just break it down in attack, defense, and kicking, trying to get the balance between those departments. Yeah.
Thank you, Jacques. Liam, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys. Question for Jacques. I want to ask you about Lood de Jager. Obviously, a big milestone for him this week. He's a player that has had to overcome many setbacks. Also, perhaps just a word on how happy you are with his progress this season, given the fact that he came into the Lions series with very little game time, if any at all. Yeah, just a word on his career, please.
Yeah, Lood is the one guy that I probably only started working with in 2016. I was thinking this morning, probably the reason I always say, listen, on the defense, why we are defending or I always say it's the players, because it is. I was just fortunate enough to work with a lot of these players at a very young age. I was counting this morning, I think about 16 of them, probably 2010, 2011, 2012. So if you think it's 8, 9 years now that I've been fortunate enough to work with them, a guy like Joseph Dweba, when he got capped last weekend, I said to him, I started coaching him in 2013 as a schoolboy. And then 2 years at SA School, 2 years at SA Under 20. So I've been part and parcel of his career, coaching his defense and stuff like that since 2013. So I'm fortunate enough now that the majority of the players I've been involved with for extensive period of time. Luet probably not. I started working with Luet in 2016. When I rejoined the box for a short stint before we went to Munster. Yes, and you know what? I can just take my hat off for him since then, and all the ups and downs that he had to face, he's lucky a guy. Luckily, my experience of him is a guy. He hasn't played a lot. He got injured, shoulder injury after the World Cup. Then he got back. Then he got that unfortunate leg injury. Was out for a long time again. And Luet is now slowly getting back to his match fitness. I think he's around about almost 200 minutes. And if you think about it. That is, how many games is that? That's just over 2.5 full games, So he's slowly getting back into it, and but yes, Luet is I'm very happy for him, and like I said, it's almost like Andre went to his 50th, then it was Damien, then it was Steven Kitsoff, and now it's Luet. I think Jesse is on the brink of getting to that milestone matches. So we are fortunate as a group and as a team currently that we have a lot of players that's reaching those milestone games, which is good for us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jacques. And next up is Percy. You probably want a summary in Afrikaans, and then we're going to go over to questions for Makazole. Percy?
Baie dankie, Rian.
Very briefly.
Jacques, kan jy my hoor?
Ja, kan jy mooi hoor. Dankie, Percy.
Baie dankie, Jacques. Jacques, kan ek net vanaf jou vra net vinnig jou denkwyse agter hierdie span en die veranderings wat jy gemaak het. Jacques, kan ek net die tweede deel van my vraag is net jou kollega Dion Davies gister op ons onder die aandag gebring van die ek wil amper sê kneesplekke of beserings in jou span, veral onder die losvoorspel en die skrimskakels. Is dit iets wat jou as die nasionale afrigter slaaplose nagte gee, of is dit maar net deel van jou beplanning?
Okay, die eerste ding, jou eerste vraag, Percy, oor die veranderinge wat ons gemaak is. Ja, dis soos wat ek laasweek gesê het, dis geen disrespek teenoor Argentinië, die veranderinge wat ons aangebring het nie. Dit is maar net, ons is in 'n posisie waar ons, as jy dink van Georgië af, van Georgia af, het ons Georgia gespeel met ons SA span wat 'n klomp, omdat ons tweede Georgia toets gekanselleer is, het 'n klomp van ons van ons bokke het in die SA span gespeel om hulle wedstryd fiksheid te gee. Ons het nie baie wedstryde gehad voor die Britse en Ierse Leeu's nie, toe die 3 toetse teen die Britse en Ierse Leeu's en direk daarna die 2 toetse teen Argentinië. So ons het 'n redelike strawwe, kan ek maar sê, toetsskedule gehad hierdie laaste, kan ek sê, 2 maande. So om te kyk na die na ons speler welstand, is ons so half geforseer om veranderinge te maak. En dit is die rede hoekom die veranderinge gemaak is. Is glad nie enigsins omdat ons disrespectful is. Ek het laasweek gesê hoe goed Argentinië is in terme van, dis maar hulle tweede verloor gewees van na die Wêreldbeker af, en hulle teen Australië, Nieu-Seeland, Wallis gespeel. En Wallis 6 nasiekampioene, Australië en Nieu-Seeland laas jaar in die Tri Nations. So geen disrespek nie, maar ons is maar net in 'n hoek gedruk in terme om te kyk na die veiligheid en die welstand van ons spelers waar ons kan. En dan dit loop ook somme in jou tweede vraag in oor die beserings wat ons het. Ja, Percy, ons het 4 losvoorspelers wat beseer is, maar hulle is almal, hoe kan ek sê, as ons volgende week 'n toets sou gespeel het, dan sou hulle almal weer in berekening gekom het. So almal is so half op die hond se stert in terme van in die einde van hulle rehabilitasie. dit het my slapelose nagte gegee want ons het 8 losserspelers in ons groep en dit is nie die ideaal om beserings te kry in een posisie nie, want dan begin jy nogal jou diepte toets en dis wat met ons gebeur het en dan ja, die ander beserings wat ons het is weer ook in een posisie, jy weet ons het 4 skramskakels hierso en Herschel en Faf is albei beseer, so ons sit op die stadium net met 2, so hoop en bid maar dan niks met daai 2, een van daai 2 ouens gebeur nie, weet. Maar ja, dit gee ou bietjie slaaplose nagte, maar die goeie vooruitsig is dat daardie spelers in die nabye toekoms sal hulle verkiesbaar wees weer.
Baie dankie Jacques, baie dankie Percy en Nathan, your question please.
Thank you, Ray, again. This one obviously is in his course of for T-Rex. T-Rex igqibele kudala ukuthetha T-Rex igqibele kudala ukuthetha nawe coach nje Gabalala bekunjani eJapan zikhona izinto ozifundileyo kulacala ngombhoxo eyogqibela coach nje injani i-competition ever kukho wena uChezi uvele usibuno ospec masingalibani no weekend special.
Yeah, la letweni futhi. eJapan but ndifunde into ezininzi kakhulu ihlobo le-culture yabo and inhlonipho yabo and ihlobo izinto abazenza ngalo yonke into inomthetho yonke into ehamba ngehlobo layo kufuneka kube ngexesha eli-right kwindawo ofuneka kulo so ininzi into endifundileyo kakhulu and into endibawelayo into yokuba yenzeke naphi na apho ndikhoyo. Yeah, ikhona i-competition apha ethimini and lendithethayo nayo but into ebalulekileyo ukuthi as thina sizi-players lokuba sisapotane because at the end of the day singabantu abayi-one and funeka sikhuthazane umntu ezawudlala siqelelane uba into udlala nomntu onjani na. I think into ebalulekileyo thina as i-players i-information onayo ugqithisele konye umntu.
Ndiyabulela Nkosi.
Thank you very much. Mahlatse.
Good afternoon, Ryan. Sorry, I just want to ask, my question is for the coach.
Okay.
I just want to check with you, coach. What is the latest with Colonel Hendricks? Because I believe you guys have been talking to him. You know, what's the situation there?
Cornell is playing for the Bulls currently, and like I said in the beginning, the tough thing for us is to get a player in from the outside. Is that there's specific testing regimes, blood tests that we need to do on specific days, PCR test, antigen tests. So it's a strict regime that we have to follow to adhere to Australia government rules and regulations of entering the country. So that's why a lot of players, or let me say not a lot, a dozen or so players or 10 players are on the fringe. And if we do pick up injuries, they are players that we will bring into the squad. But again on that, if you ask me what size of a squad would I prefer to take abroad, it will probably be in the vicinity of 37. I think 37 is manageable. Remember, every player we add to our squad is a player that's probably not going to get an opportunity if nobody gets injured. And it's tough for 6 weeks if you sit there, you do all the training and you never get an opportunity. So if you ask me if I could, and it was easier to get a player into, us as a management group, as a coaching group. If it was easier to get a player in or quicker to get a player in into Australia, we would have probably travelled with less, a smaller squad. But it's just impossible with the regulations that there's currently. It takes, like I said, 14 days quarantine, and then before a player can get on a plane, he has to almost a week 10 days go into a specific routine in terms of how he isolates himself, in terms of what test gets done when and where and how frequently it gets done, and then he must obviously produce negative tests as he goes through that 10-day period or 7-day period before he gets onto that plane. So it's not just and our players who's on standby are on those regimes. So yes, that's pretty much on all of them, not just Cornwall. All the players who's on standby.
Thank you, Jacques, and we will conclude this session now. Before moving on to the other two players, Haniso, very briefly, thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, guys, I wanted to ask earlier, but for some reason my internet went on me. Quick one in English, Jacques. Are you able to just give me an idea of the extent of the injuries that Marco and Herschel have suffered and how long they'll be out for if I missed it? And for Makazole, man, Makazole, kakusicacisele nje ngeziveki izinhlanu manje uhlele amabhokobhoko uqala ku-British Irish Lions series uzoza kule Argentina series.
Oh, okay. Kuqala mandibulela kule question yakho. I think iveki ezinhlanu silapha ku-Springbok. Of course, bendilapha ku-Springbok since ngo-2019 and uqala kwethu ke ngokuqala kwami ujoin i-Springbok was like eBloemfontein and sifunde lukhulu nangona khange sidlale rugby ixesha elide as a-Springbok sigqibele ngo-2019 and sikwazile ke uhlanganisa izinto zethu no-coach bakwazile uhlanganisa into zabo and nathi as a player sikwazi uhlanganisa into zethu ezisilungiselele i-Lions store but sikwazile ukufikelela ngexesha elo but lukhulu into esifundileyo as ne-coaches likhulu uxanduva abalufakileyo kuthi.
And your question on Marco, unfortunately, in the last play of the game, the last tackle, I think the tackle that Vince tackled the ball out of the Argentina player there on our try line. When he tackled the Argentina player, he fell on top of Marco's ankle, and then he did his ankle. But it was touch and go for him to make this weekend. But our selection policy is we need time with the players, so he couldn't train on Monday and Tuesday. And that's the reason why we decided not to select him. And then your other question was on Herschel. Herschel sustained a hip pointer last week, Tuesday, in the attack session. We got a knock from one of the defender players. He got a knock on his hip. And then he trained a little bit on Wednesday. And we thought, listen, let's give him enough time and sufficient time. Let's see if he can't get through the week. But then in captains, he came to me and hats off to him, and he said, listen, he's struggling, and he feel he will drop the team currently in the state that he's then. But he's much better now. And again, we decided, listen, let's give him another week to recover, and then obviously we've got 2 weeks, and then we're back into Australia. So again, I think Herschel hip pointers are injuries. Some of them are in a week, and some of them take 2 to 3 weeks to recover. So I think Herschel is probably a 2-week one. I think if we would have played the next week, he would have been good to go. Marco, like I say, I think the big thing with Marco is our selection policy. If a player is not able to train on a Monday or Tuesday, like we did in the World Cup, when Cheslin couldn't train on the Monday before the Wales semi-final, then we take the next guy, the next fit player, which was Sabu, and that's just how we work. But we often at loose forwards, and we've got 4 standing. But Marco is probably the one that's the closest to fitness than all 3 the other 3 players, loose forwards.
Thank you, Jacques.